And the good news is that you do fail, and then you realize it was never quite that bad. So all those cliches that you don't learn by your successes. Your successes just make you think you are the big I am. You learn from your failures.
So
And they're the
true.
things, and they just make you a more rounded, empathetic, nicer person. I think people who have had nothing but success all the way down the path are quite difficult to be with,
And to be
because
connected to other people, right?
yeah, yeah. So failure is incredibly important, and we almost need to rebrand it.
What
It
would
should
you,
be
you're
called
the
growth.
branding queen, what would you rebrand
Yeah.
failure
I
as?
think I call it growth.
Oh, growth.
I've
Oh my
never thought of
God.
that before, but actually failure just sounds such an awful word. It's so negative. We're so fearful of failure, particularly I think in the UK. There is a better attitude in some ways in the US, albeit it's not perfect, but you definitely feel that people love you for trying. And there is a little bit of Schadenfreude in the UK that we need to be aware of. We need to applaud people for trying. And if they fail, then you applaud them for having grown into that failure, and then use that as another springboard for something.
Totally. And just giving it a go. Because one of the things that I think about quite a lot at the moment, and therefore I'm trying to do more, is, it's like the 20 minutes of doing as opposed to the 5 days of thinking.
What I've always loved about every business that I've been involved in is I love that position of naivety, because I don't know why not. So, starting a branding agency and obviously doing that, and then through that, having our baby making years. And as you pointed out, through absolute selfish need, creating a pregnancy skincare line, and then thinking, there is this niche in the market you could drive a bus into that nobody seems to have tapped into to really look after you through that 9 month of pregnancy. And then realizing, okay, we've never launched a skincare brand before. I haven't risen through the ranks of Estee Lauder or L'Oreal, but the benefit of not knowing why not is very empowering. And and I think that's probably a common thread that has run through everything that I've ever done. I don't know why not. So, I didn't know that I couldn't set up a restaurant. I didn't know that I couldn't go out there and raise the money and find the building and do all the things I did age 26. And it's better not to know. And we live in a world where we venerate and idolize the knowledgeable, when actually, if you just have a will, you will find a way. And
And
I think
common sense,
it's
right? And be
and such
solutions driven, right?
yeah. And it's all, and the other thing is, from one business to another, you don't realize until you're doing the next business, it's the same shit.
But Shan,
Mm.
tell me, I'd love you to talk a little bit about, to people who are looking to build businesses. And today we really do talk about purpose in building businesses, be it for profit or social enterprises. But people talk about coming with heart, coming with purpose, things that you've been doing your whole life. Frankly, it's just this sort of lexicon is very much part of the norm today. What would you say to
Mhm.
people who want to go about building something? What are the 3 top tips that you would give them, whether it's campaign led? Because I do think in some businesses you almost need to have a campaign, don't you, whether it be on social
Totally.
media or other. So it may not be a
Mhm.
campaign to save the planet, but it could be a campaign to get your business out there, right, and create an
Mhm.
oceanic swell, excuse the pun, to get things moving. What is your what advice would you give to people thinking about combining all that and launching a venture, or growing exponentially an early stage business?
When I started Mamma Mia, I used to always talk about the fact that what you need to find is not a trend, but a need. And obviously, with pregnancy, we found a genuine need, not just latest, newest, funkiest ingredient, or
Mm,
something that we can make
mm,
you feel insecure about, and then sell you a
mm,
skincare product to fix
mm.
it. We found a genuine need. And I think that is always the goal for an entrepreneur, is you find a pain point that you can then fix, or you find a need that you can then answer. And I think, to build on what you were just saying, now it's gone even further than that. And I've always believed, I don't want to be in the business of selling stuff. I want to sell stuff that has purpose in some way,
Right.
be it creating a restaurant that makes people feel safe and comfortable and
Mm,
have a wonderful
mm,
experience, or selling a skincare brand that had that incredible emotional connection
mm.
with our customers, to what we're doing now at A Plastic Planet. And that is, as much as finding a need now, it's finding a movement.
Mm,
So if you can find a movement, then you can build a community.
mm,
And a movement in its broader sense, it's a direction of travel.
yeah.
And with movements, you can then very easily build community, because it's very hard now to build a community around a product that doesn't have any meaning or purpose in our lives.
Mm.
That isn't the way that we think anymore. We buy very emotionally still. So you tap into a movement, or you create your own movement, and then you can build a community. And that community can, of course, be something that is very social media driven, or it can be a digital community, or it can be a physical community. And then you can pop a brand in there. It's almost that simple. If you think of it that way, that it goes movement, community, definitely some kind of digital content, because that's how you can scale quickly now. And then it's about brand. And if you think of it in that sequence rather than product first, and this is where I think people
So
often go
interesting.
wrong.
Mm.
I meet people all the time who say, I have got the best product in the world. And I said, well, that's incredible. Of course, that's great. But do you really think that the world is going to beat a path to your door? How are they going to know about you? What else are you doing? How are you answering the need that is out there? And I think there is in out there right now, there's some very raw needs
Yeah.
of mental health and loneliness, and people feeling disempowered. And there are so many things out there that I think there's a lot of opportunity. Where there is change, there is always opportunity. Right
100%.
now, this has got to be the best time to be an entrepreneur. Because entrepreneurs are, not only are they in the UK the biggest employers, the SMEs employ way more people in the UK than the big businesses.
Mm.
There's always a massive focus on big industry, but actually the SMEs are the ones. And I think there's going to be a massive growth coming through this pandemic. I think people are thinking in a very different way. I hope they buy in a very different way too.
What would you say to those people? They're trying to work it all out.
Yeah, I have a mantra D, which is life's too short to blend in.
So is, seriously.
So I would encourage everybody to be your own person, have your own style. Don't think, definitely don't think. And I tell you where I've learned many times is you always think the big guys know better.
Mm.
And then you realize, no, trust your own gut, because it is that naivety that is your power. Think of it as your superpower, because you don't know why not.
Mm.
And if you don't speak the right language of banking or any of the industries where you're trying to
Mm.
fundraise and all of that stuff, don't worry about it. That's their job. They don't know your language, and your language is the one of empowerment and of entrepreneurship and of creating something out of nothing. Because I think being an entrepreneur is the most creative thing in the world.
Yeah.
You make something out of nothing. When people talk to me about, oh, I'm not creative, I can't draw, I said, are you joking? You're an entrepreneur. That's the most creative thing in the world. And then what do? Not only do you create something out of
Mm.
nothing, but you employ other people.
Right, which is fantastic. And they haven't been forced down that path because you can't, right? It's a kind of calling in some ways, right? Shan, what, you mentor lots of young aspiring entrepreneurs. You have a lot of people calling you, asking for direction and advice. What's the best piece of advice that you've been given? I mean, I know you've been given loads, but what's the thing that really has stayed with you from your mother or from anybody, frankly, you've come across on the road and on the journey?
Well, I'm going to give you one that sounds really boring, but it's so true. So when we launched Mamma Mia, we were the first startup that Investec, the South African bank, we were the first startup they ever backed. I'm sure they'll never back another. I'm sure we were an absolute nightmare for them. But I had to go and report at all the board meetings every month. And I'd go in and I would be me and I'd be saying, we've got so much opportunity. We're working with the Royal College of Midwives. We've got this, we've got that. Sephora have rung, such and such has happened, and all of these things. And they would say to me, okay, Shan, how does it convert to sales? And those words, how does it convert? They were like a knife in me every single month. How does it convert to sales? Because it was like, oh, you just don't get it. You just don't get it, do you? But it's so true. How does it convert to
Oh, I
sales?
know. It does. It's,
Because
yeah.
opportunity and words and ideas are easy, and execution and implementation is everything. And having
I
people
agree
around
with
you who
that.
can take great ideas and drive them and make them into something, and have the tenacity to make things happen out
Mm.
of nothing,
Mm.
that is incredibly difficult. And the other thing is, if you are doing something, you have to do it 100%. this whole thing of in your spare time, I've built up this multi-billion-dollar
Doesn't
business.
work. That's just a load of
It
rubbish,
doesn't
frankly,
work.
in my view, you know.
Yeah, it's all about application, and it's you are choosing the hard road, but it's a brilliant road.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Double Espresso with Dee, with me, Dee Sterling. If you enjoyed it, I'd love you to review and subscribe to the podcast so we can share these amazing stories with others. I'd also love to connect with you, so feel free to contact me via Instagram DM at @D_Espresso. Until the next time, au revoir.